Hi everyone, welcome to OMBI Anganwadi. This is a series focusing on mainly SQL, starting with basic SQL, which is the foundation of writing a query, and moving ahead to some advanced concepts, practical query writing, and a lot more troubleshooting techniques. So, to start with, in this video, we will be concentrating on what exactly SQL is and how we write basic SQL queries to connect and communicate with the database. And later, we would be moving on to how we practically write an SQL query and what are the different aspects to consider. So, what exactly SQL or structured query language is? It is like a language which we use in order to communicate with the database and retrieve whatever data we want to, considering different aspects. In this series, we will be making use of Microsoft SQL Server or MS SQL, and we would be using the tool SSMS or SQL Server Management Studio in order to connect to my instance and work. So this is how the SSMS UI would look like. And when I hover on this Object Explorer, I get to connect to my instance and I can use a new query window over here in order to type my query. MS SQL is one of the most popular and most commonly used RDBMS system, mainly for OLTP. It is a Microsoft product. The SSMS UI also is a very user-friendly, beginner-friendly UI where database connection and you have a visibility of all the objects within the Object Explorer. So it's quite user-friendly. Now coming to how data is stored within an RDBMS. In the first level comes the SQL Server instance, which should be up and running, into which we have a databases, multiple databases within which we have the schema structure, and within schemas we have different objects which are getting stored. So for analogy, you can treat a database as a main folder into which we have different groups or subfolders called schemas for better organization and grouping of the objects, into which we have different tables stored. Now if I click on the databases drop down here and select AdventureWorks, which is my sample database, and again I will expand tables. Here you would be able to see a lot of schemas. So DBO dot or human resources dot. This would be my schema and followed by the object name. And DBO is the default schema in MS SQL. So next, talking about data retrieval or how to read the data which is present in the database or how to get what data you desire to look at. So for that we use something called as a select query. So initially I should be connecting to the database from where I wish to retrieve the data. I can either use this use database or I can also select my desired database from here. Both work the same. Now I have selected AdventureWorks and select star from schema name dot table name. So human resources is my schema dot employee. So now I get to see all the rows and all the columns from this table. So what does star do? Star basically retrieves all the possible columns which are part of that table. Now if I want to select only a few selected columns which I want to look at, then I have to write all the column names here in a comma separated format. Say I want business entity ID, job title, and gender maybe. So I should be doing it this way: business entity ID, comma job title, comma gender from human resources dot employee. Now I would be getting whatever desired columns I have mentioned in my query. So what does this query do? This query retrieves the three columns or the column list which is mentioned in the select clause, but it retrieves all the rows or all the records which are part of this table. In a practical scenario, assume that you don't want to retrieve all the records, but you have a specific condition based on which you want to retrieve the records, or you want to retrieve only a few selected records. So for that scenario, we would be using filter conditions, for which we use something called as a where clause. So select column names from table name where, say I want where business entity ID equal to 10 maybe. So I would say where business entity ID equal to 10. And when I am running this, I get only that record or set of records which match the filter condition. And I can also save and give multiple other conditions, something like where business entity ID greater than 10 and gender equal to M. For the equality check, I can use all equality, greater than, lesser than, not equal to, any kind of operators. So both the conditions has matched. Business entity ID started from greater than 10 and all the records having gender M has got retrieved. Now let's get a deeper understanding about each of the components of the query. Select tells the SQL engine on what columns or what data you want to see. From tells from which table or from where the data needs to be picked up, and where helps in filtering what data or what rows you want to see. In brief, with the help of select you say what you want, with the help of from you say from where you want to get it, with the help of where you say which rows should qualify and you want to see. So this was a brief video on what exactly is SQL and how you can write basic SQL queries to retrieve data from your database. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe and stay tuned for more interesting and practical content on SQL.